Hi, Clarissa. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, John. I'm thrilled to be here.
It's my pleasure. Now, we're going to be covering your latest book, but before we do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'd love to do that too, because I'm very thrilled about the book. It came out about a year and a half ago. The name of the book is The Self-Esteem Regime. And I'm thrilled about it because it was something that I wanted to write for a very long time. It actually got done with the help of my literary agent, Gary Krebs. And I'm thrilled to say now the book it's a Plury Award-winning best-selling book and an international bestseller as well. So, I think that the idea of personal development as a whole is something we really all need to be taking a deeper dive into. So I'm thrilled to say I've written the book, that it's doing well, and that especially, John, in these really uncertain times, people are feeling it. They're feeling a little destabilized. The numbers as far as pretty much every age group, as far as depression, anxiety, the thoughts or the ideations of suicide or people that have actually committed suicide are truly off the charts, and it's alarming. So my clarion call is one to say, please, obviously, if you need the help, please ask. But in the meantime, if you're just, in a place where I don't know, next steps, what am I going to do? I'm feeling fear, all the fear mongering going on, or I'm not sure of who I am anymore because I lost my job, I lost my faith, I lost my home, I lost my money, I lost friends, family, whatever happened, especially post-COVID. My clarion call is to please get into the personal development section of any good bookstore or certainly Amazon to be able to make sure that you are sustaining yourself, that you are taking care of you first and foremost. You know what they say on airplanes, John? Make sure your oxygen mask is on first and then assist others. So yeah, and this goes for men as well. And you've seen the cover of my book is blue. And when it first came to me, John, it was pink, yellow, and orange. There are 3 different triangles on here. I'll get it closer. You can see the different iterations and hues of the color. And I asked the publisher. The only one thing I asked is please make the cover blue, so that first of all, it's more of it's a calming color, and not only but especially for the gentlemen that would like to pick up the book. And I'm happy to say many have, that they would be more prone to be picking up the book off the bookshelves at Barnes and Noble here in the United States. And I believe, and I've been to Toronto, and the book is there as well. So yeah, in the bookstores.
Excellent. Well, of course, self-esteem is very important, and you call this book a regime. How does one go about implementing this regime to bring self-esteem into their own lives?
Well, I really love the idea that you brought up regime. Regime is an organized way of doing things. There are certain parts in the world where you have to be careful of that word. But for me, especially, in the United States, we're not as sensitive to the word regime. Again, it is an organized way of doing things. And that just brings to mind that, and for me, the idea was to go ahead and make this 12 different chapters. There are 12 chapters that begin with a re word. We start with release. So all of the things that we have been taught, all of the things that we hold to still be true, all of those things that are not serving us anymore are the ones that we need to be releasing. So, that is really, John, if you will, 75% of the job. If you can let go of what you believe to be true that's not serving you, if you could sit down and go, okay, what is it that what are my belief system? What do I believe about me and others that really isn't true or that isn't serving me? And that's a list that you will sit down and make. And it's not always an easy job to do, because you definitely have to start rectifying yourself with yourself.
That's right.
And that can really be that can be an interesting go. The second thing that we do is, on top of that, then once we've broken down all the walls and we're kind of at ground zero, we want to rebuild. So what do we do then to start rebuilding the life that we want to be living? Where do we want to be in 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? And start really putting together the blueprint that's going to help us get there. You must be, accountable to yourself. Yeah, I mean, you can have an accountability partner if you'd like. I mean, you can keep someone in the loop. But what you're really trying to do, John, is to really come to grips with who you are. Is it working for you? What's working, what's not, and where you want to be. That's really important. Our next chapter, for example, and I know this hit home for me, and I think it will for many others as well, is responsibility.
Mhm.
You know, where are you taking responsibility for your life, and where are you kind of shirking responsibility? I know that for me, for example, John, I am a right brain kind of gal.
Mm.
You can give me anything creative, I'll talk your ear off all day long. I have no problem getting up in front of a gala ball and emceeing in front of 300 people, whereas that would be someone else's undoing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a really fabulous quote by Jerry Seinfeld, and it goes something like this: at a funeral, I would much rather be the guy in the coffin than the guy that has to stand up at the pulpit to give the eulogy.
I remember
For
that.
the,
I
yeah,
remember.
right. For the fear of public speaking.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
to me, that doesn't scare me at all. But what I really have a hard time with, and where I shirk responsibility, is contracts, lawyers, accounting, numbers, all of the billing, all of, oh gosh, I don't want to have anything to do with, accountant, all of that. That is my undoing. And I really do shirk sometimes the response, or at least let's say I procrastinate around that a lot. So I know that that's something that I need to get more comfortable with, learn more about, so that it doesn't scare me as much as I think it does, because a lot of who we are is perception. It's our perception of self. So yeah,
Hmm. When did you write this book?
the book was written, it started to be written in 2020.
Mhm.
We actually got the book deal. I think it was 4 months into COVID, we started to get the book. And we were kind of coming off of the Me Too movement, if you will.
Mhm.
And then we went into COVID. And I think that the publishers, Rowman and Littlefield in New York City, kind of knew or had a feeling that, first of all, John, when I was a kid, when we were kids, we had bookstores. That's what we had. We didn't have computers, we didn't have internet, there
Yeah.
were no cell phones. So our information came from either a library where in school where you would go to a card catalog, and I'm sure none of our younger generations know what that is, or you go actually to a real bookstore and
Yeah,
buy books.
that's what I did.
There was a little section in the back, if you remember, and it was called self-help.
Yes.
So that was it.
Yeah.
And there might have been a couple of rows of something, it wasn't really quite a thing yet. And I'm going back to, gosh, John, the 60s and the 70s
That's right.
for me. So, now the idea is, if you walk in, and I do, because I'm thrilled to say my book is in Barnes and Noble, that on the bookshelf, as you walk down now and you look for self-help, it's now called the personal development section. And it is, apart from $1 billion industry, it is rows and rows and rows and rows of books that will help you become a better version of yourself, a more secure and confident version of yourself. My point is, people are still constantly wanting to live a better life, be a better person, understand what it's all about, what their purpose is, and ways out of old paradigms. So yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely, I'm so thrilled when I say in Barnes and Noble. John, I think my crowning moment was when I
Wow.
walked in and saw my first, there's
Oh,
my book.
wow.
It's in
That's
Barnes and
great.
Noble and
Yeah.
it's on the shelf.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, it's next to my last name being Burt, Burt. It's next to Brene Brown. Then it's me. Then it's Deepak Chopra.
Wow.
And then it's Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it just goes on and on. So
Mhm.
I must say it was really, really a thrilling moment for me.
Okay. So your book has 12 chapters. Each chapter is a segment that you're working towards. If a person reads the whole book, practices the regime, and I have no problem with that word, and then comes out the end of it, if they actually do everything, do they achieve sort of a perfect self-esteem? Is that even possible?
Love the question. And the question is, here's the answer. You can never take a self-esteem test, get 100 pass, and you're good to go for life, because life is a fun place it's like a roller coaster, right? It's a real fun place to be. And there are always going to be triggers. It's just how it goes. It's just who we are. We are triggered. We're offended. We're hurt. We are emotional beings, John. And so, that's where we start to talk about emotional intelligence and understanding what our triggers are, why our triggers are the way they are, taking a deeper dive into self, not only potentially into our childhoods, but for also into potentially our genealogy. And I was able to take a couple of different tests that I found were very, very helpful in understanding who I am and why I'm built and why I am the way I am. I think, and funnily enough, started to read a book about Asperger's, and there's a book out called Aspergirls. Not Asperger's, but Aspergirls. And it was very interesting to understand, why I prefer, I have difficulty with loud sounds or bright, light, or, smells, or I love being alone. I'm not afraid, a different thing. Like I could never go to a concert because it was just too loud for me. And I could never understood these triggers and why it was the way it was. Well, there's a potential. Well, we're all hardwired in certain ways, and some of the things that we are due to our genealogy as well. Right now, I'm not saying I have Asperger's. That's not what I'm trying to say. But there were different things that are on the spectrum of Asperger's, and there are different levels, if you will, of Asperger's. Right. But I found that I found a little bit of this. Another book that I read, and it's called The Extra Sensitive Person by Dr. Elaine Aron. And there it was, bright lights, loud noises, all of this. So we are extra sensitive. There's about 30% of the world's population that is also extra sensitive to stimulation, right? And so, again, there it was written in black and white. I thought everybody said, oh, you're such a pain in the ass. You're so difficult. Oh, you're not. And I really didn't know. I didn't mean to be, but there were reasons for it. So this also really your self-esteem will take a hit until you start to understand where and why, why you are hardwired the way you are. This obviously took a lot of pressure, takes pressure off, and it helps to alleviate some of the negative self-talk for sure. So yeah, again, there's never a way to say I'm 100% have self-esteem. There's something you're always going to be working on. And again, as I said, life will trigger you.
Mm-hmm.
There could be a loss of a job, a breakup of a relationship, go down the list, John. There's a million things that could trigger us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And life will send you that tornado, the hurricane, that tempest is going to come through. And I'm always saying, we need to deal with the tools that we have in the shed at any given time, that we need to be really well eradicated, or we need to be standing strongly in our stead, right? Just like a well eradicated tree.
Mm-hmm.
So when that storm comes through, as it inevitably will, you might lose a leaf or two. You might even lose a branch. But you're not going to be, again, eradicated and then taken away and taken away with that storm. You're going to be able to hold on to what the tools that you have learned along the way that are going to help you pretty much through anything in life.
Well, just before you came on the show, I was taking a look at your book online, took a peek inside. You mentioned something about mirror therapy. I didn't have a
Yes.
chance to get any deeper into it. I figured I'd ask you, what is that and how does it work?
The book is a manual, it's a mission and a movement. It's a resource. Remember the words. It's a resource. And it's a resource in the sense that there's also a great deal of homework that you're going to be doing. This is not a read. You're not going to be reading about self-esteem. You're going to be working on bettering the betterment of your self-esteem. So mirror therapy is something that I first learned about through Louise Hayes and her works. And then Jack Canfield, co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul series, also used it in his works. And I loved the idea of being able to go and look at yourself in the mirror. Look, you can either look at yourself in the mirror or you can look into yourself in the mirror. And there are two different ways of approaching that. So if I want to go and, put on my makeup and, fix my hair, I'm looking at myself in the mirror. When I start to look into myself in the mirror or into the mirror, and looking at myself, it's a whole different bag of chips. It's when you start to say to yourself the things that you want to say to yourself, the things that you need to hear, the things that will sustain you, the things that will help you grow, such as, I forgive you. I like you. I'm proud of you. I love you. I'm here for you. And I know it sounds silly. I know it sounds really strange. And you're probably going to want to do this exercise and nobody else is at home. And you start with 1 minute, 2 minutes. But I tell you that when you start to look at yourself, it's almost as though you're taking a really deep dive into your soul, thanks to this reflection
Mhm.
that is gazing back at you, and is actually your accountability partner. It's a work partner. You become your own work partner, which is really an extraordinary step to take. It's a little unsettling in the beginning. It's kind of, some people bring a tissue along with them because these are things they want to hear. People are giving themselves permission to forgive themselves for the things that they decisions they've made along the way that might have not worked out to be for their betterment or their greater good. So yeah, we're here to make mistakes. We are human beings, and we're here to learn from them. One of the things I talk about also is failure. People are so afraid to fail, 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 fail. Well, the acronym that I love using is your first attempt in learning, right? So as we are human beings and we are living this thing called life, obviously mistakes are going to be made. We try not to, but they are going to be made. They will be made. Yeah. And so if you, just kind of shift the perception that, oh, it's such a horrible thing to fail, and say, well, it's kind of not that horrible to fail, because I want to celebrate that failure in the sense that I am that much closer now to success. And certainly fear, here we go. Yeah, I think there are different acronyms. There's one acronym with different sayings, but it's face everything and rise.
Mhm.
It's just face it, do it. There's no way around fear. There's only a way through it. And if the sooner you make friends with fear and don't let it hold you back. And God knows I know plenty of times in my life, not as much anymore as before, but yeah, I don't let that happen as much anymore. I really I read my own words. I read my own book,
Mhm.
and it is strength to pull
Yeah.
through.
I understand. I mean, one could listen to you, look at you, and think, "What? You used to be fearful?" Well, we all went through that. Would you say that
Mhm.
it's this thing that you're experiencing, and I too am experiencing it, happens later in life if you have your head screwed
Yes.
on right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I've spoken to teenagers, I've spoken to men, I've spoken to women, I've spoken to the gay community, I've spoken to the elderly, because the elderly then come up against a whole different set of circumstances in their lives. The empty nesters, there are many separations and divorces later in life. There are and then you're out there in the world going, God, I haven't dated in 30 years, I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm getting older, who's going to want this jiggly belly? What do I even have? Who am I even now, as me, myself, and I, as opposed to me in a relationship with someone else? They might even be looking at, as we go out later, we're looking at assisted living. We're looking at really taking a look at mortality. And this is something that, can really, really take a toll on our self-esteem. And it doesn't have to.
Mm.
The people that are sick, John, can you imagine what people that are being told that let's use cancer as an example. There are many other, maladies that we could be using, you've got cancer.
Mhm.
We're
I've
going
lost
to
a
have
few friends already for cancer. I have a friend of mine who has ALS, another friend has MS. Yeah, I know, these are struggles, and I see
these
them
are
firsthand,
huge
yeah.
struggles. Absolutely. Not only are you, struggling for your life, but while you're still in life, as we age, we need to be keeping ourselves really up and positive and happy and purposeful, and knowing that we come to the table with a whole different set of tools that we're able now to share with others that we got to this point because of the things that we went through. Now, you can share them. Some, your teenage grandchildren may not want to listen. It's their life, their path, and they will learn on their own. But certainly the idea that I can sit here, with my book at 64 years old and know that I'm able to share these things with anyone that will listen. And I think people do need to listen, because self-esteem is something that if it's not intact, by the time you wake up in the morning, your feet hit the ground, you will be having, problems either with the relationship with yourself, or certainly your relationship with others.
Hmm.
Self-esteem is something that you will be again, as we've just said, it's something you will be befriending for a lifetime.
Mhm. Well, speaking about people, you've sold some books, I take it. Has anybody come back to you and says, wow, I read your book, it's
Yes.
really helped me?
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that.
It's extraordinary. I mean, it's kind of the crowning moment, if you will, I think, of every author to say, I read your works and it's had an impact on me. There are, a lot of all the women in my network, in my masterminds have read them and have come back and said, the book is life changing, and that they read the book and that they do the exercises, and that, there's some work to be done, but, there are things that they might have even forgotten, remembering that the girls that are in my network are anywhere from like 35 to 65. So I'm not really talking about girls as teenagers, right? Although I speak to them as well. The ones that are in my closer inner circle are a little bit more, are a little older than teens. So absolutely, the things that we are talking about in the book are good for teens that are hearing it for the first time, but in the girls that I'm closer to in age group, these are, and I love saying girls as women, we can use them both, but to be able for them to say, God, I forgot about that. That was something yeah, of course. I mean, that wasn't serving me, or, it's something my mom and dad always said. And that just never really resonated with me. Some people have come back to me and said, even in my faith, they were saying whatever, this one thing, and it just kind of never really resonated with me. And, this book kind of gives me the permission to tweak that a little bit, or, again, the idea being we want to be better people tomorrow than we are today. The 4 pillars of self-esteem are look good, feel, so obviously our external appearance, look good, feel good, everything that's going on inside. So diet, exercise, nutrition, brain health. We've heard a lot about brain health in these last 10, 15, 20 years, John. We never used to hear about that. And I love Dr. Amen's work. Be good, everything that were finances, leadership, relationship, all the other things that are happening around us in life. We want to make sure that we're keeping on top of all of those things, because we are all leaders in our own special way. We are either we're leading family, we're leading friends, we're leading something at work, we're leading as entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, we're leading our businesses and the people that we impact. So definitely there. And then the 4th good is your greater good. Tithing, volunteering, paying it forward, paying it back, doing something that is for someone else, which is the quickest self-esteem hit ever, is do something good for somebody else.
That's right.
Even if it's a compliment, a smile, holding an elevator door open, helping a lady down the stairs with a baby carriage, or as we used to do, John, getting up for the elderly or a pregnant woman on public transportation, right?
Sure.
The manners, the good things that we can do for someone else always put a smile. It kind of puts a smile in our heart too.
Yeah, exactly. I think back to my life, and I'm really grateful for my parents and certain teachers that I had in college and even high school, I suppose. And I have fond memories of my grade 5 teacher who taught me how to play guitar, Mr. Frank Murray. And sometimes I still think about him. Who are you thankful for?
I'm definitely thankful for my family. My mother, we almost lost in a horrific car accident in August. So she's just turned 83, doing really, really well. But it was a 6 month touch and go. And, it's funny how we really do take for granted, that somebody's going to be there tomorrow. They're just, you're going to wake up and they're going to answer a phone. and this car accident, put the fear of God into us all. And she definitely it could have gone a very different way in that accident. It was a head-on, full on collision,
Wow.
but she had already come with some pathologies that worsened. So, I'm happy about family, always happy about family. But I come to when we talk about self-esteem, we want to talk about our value systems as well. So whatever they are for you, we all have something different. But I talk about something, John, it's called taking the high road. It has nothing to do with marijuana. It is taking the high road. And so it's honesty, integrity, gratitude, and honor. And so for me, gratitude is the warm bed I just woke up in this morning, the food that's in the pantry, the the water that's flowing through this, the spigot, the all of the the essentials in life that we take for granted as well. There are a lot of people in this world that do not have fresh, clean running water, or a warm bed at night. And so these are the things that I think we need to really, take stock in and remember every day just how lucky we truly are. And I understand these are difficult times. They're difficult and financial, economic. They're difficult political times. I get it. I got it. We're all going through it. But I do believe that if you, again, remember what I said about those strong roots, a good, strong root system rooted strongly in your stead, right?
Yeah.
Will definitely help to get you through, and a good head on your shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything in your book that is spiritual? Like, there's a difference between spiritual and religious. And
Yeah.
I interview a few authors here who have written self-help books, and they bring in spirituality into the mix. Do you do that?
I do. I believe in that everybody should be able to believe in whatever it is they want to believe in. A lot of people are very, very eradicated in their religions, and it works for them, and I think that's great. I do bring in, I like to call it the divine source and universe. It's kind of what works for me overall, but it really doesn't matter as long as you know that there is a higher power that you will atone to, and that you are is a guiding force in your life. I think that that's where spirituality comes into play. We talk often also about respect, which I think is, the respect of not only the greater power, but the respect for ourselves is extremely important. Boundaries. How are we teaching others that we want to be treated is I think is a pretty spiritual move, because once you can move out of that and say, nope, I'm standing up, I'm standing, here's where I draw the line in the sand. This is how I will and will not be treated. Either you come onto this side of that line, or I'm sorry, where I'm going to have to rethink the relationship. The toxicity in relationships is something that people have a very difficult time taking a look at. But when you get into a more spiritual light about the love of self, you are able then to say, this is going to hurt, and I will miss this person, but I know that it is not for my greatest good. I know this, John, because I just did it
Mhm.
myself 14 months ago.
Yeah.
And it was wrenching,
Yeah.
but I did it. And if I'm writing a book about it, I've got to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Hmm. On a global level, I'm seeing changes, small changes. I mean, it's still a very tense world, very anxiety-filled world, but I think people like you and many of the people I speak to on this podcast and the people in my life, I think we're the majority. That's what I think.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah.
I do think so too. I think that we need to be putting out, keeping out, positivity,
Hmm.
keeping out good inspiration, keeping out, there always is another way, keeping out what else is possible, and that it just broadens the scope of thinking. Again, what else is so if that didn't work that way, if that didn't go the way you wanted it to, what else is possible?
Hmm.
And this opens up, the mind. It opens up remembering that thoughts are things, remembering that those thoughts are an energetic wave, and that the way we are thinking is exactly what we're attracting. Really, I mean, look, these are universal principles. I'm not making them up. They've been around I think, since Adam and Eve, if not beforehand. So, just as reminders, right, to continually, this is why I say, get into the bookstores, walk up and down those aisles, pick up a book that's going to resonate with you. But I think it's our duty to continue to work on our personal development. So, yeah, spiritually, I would say the whole book is spiritual, without a doubt.
Cool. Wow. Just speaking to you for this short time that we did, I am feeling better about my life already. I can imagine your book,
That's
it
wonderful.
would be even better.
Thank you. That's so wonderful to hear. Thank you so
Wow,
much. I really
great. This has
appreciate
been
that.
fantastic, Clarissa.
Thank you, John.
Is there anything else you want to add before we finish?
Um, Loyalty is when you have my back behind my back. So think about that just for a
Okay.
second. I want everybody to take that away with them. Are you really a loyal friend? Are you really a loyal husband and wife? Are you really a loyal daughter, mother, father, whatever? Plug in the word you prefer.
Yeah.
How are you? Who are you when you're at the water cooler and somebody is trashing Susie Q? Do you
Mm-hmm.
foment with do you foment with the pack? Or do you say,
Yeah.
you know what, guys, I know Susie Q and, I like her.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe she's just having a bad day and needs a hug. Come on, guys, lighten up.
Right.
Who are you really? Who are you also when nobody else? Who are you when no one else is in the room?
Yeah.
That's your true self. That is your true essence. That is who you need to be working on.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Clarissa. This has been delightful. Really
Thank
enjoyed this talk. And
I did as well.
if you read another book, you come back here. We'll talk about that one as well.
I truly appreciate that. Thank you so kindly.
All right. You take care of yourself now.
Bye-bye now.
Take care. And that's our show for today. If you like what I do here on Tell Me About Your Book, then please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that bell for future notifications. And if you are a self-published author, I would really like to speak with you. Until such time, keep on writing and be kind to one another.